Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I'll be speaking on item A, Council's Domestic and Family Violence Prevention Strategy. Mr Chair, almost 12 months ago to the day, I moved an urgency motion that this council condemns all forms of domestic and family violence in our community and creates a Brisbane City Council Domestic and Family Violence Prevention Strategy. I am so pleased that today we have the final strategy before us, a bipartisan document, the first of its kind for Brisbane City Council. I congratulate the Lord Mayor, council officers and all councillors in this place for making this document a reality. I want to also specifically thank Councillor Allen for meeting with me to discuss the draft document and for seeking my input about consultation groups. This strategy represents an important first step towards council taking a proactive approach to eliminating violence in our city and making clear that it will not be tolerated. As I have spoken about before in this place, May marks Domestic and Family Violence Prevention Month in Queensland to raise community awareness of domestic and family violence and to send a clear message that violence of any sort will not be tolerated. The release of this strategy is therefore very appropriately timed this month. The creation of this strategy had bipartisan support and consultation was undertaken with a wide range of relevant organisations. At the time feedback was sought by council, I provided my comments on behalf of the Labor opposition in this place. Some of that feedback I will be discussing today. Some comments were taken on board and some were not, but I want to expand on some of that information that I did provide to council. I want to be very clear that Labor fully supports the implementation of the domestic violence strategy for the city, but that we do see this as a starting point and not a final destination, Mr Chair. Mr Chair, we know that on average, 1 woman a week has died in Australia as a result of domestic violence-related homicide. I raise this point as this is one key fact that was removed from the final strategy document. It was initially featured prominently on the front page in bold on the draft document. Other stronger language in the document was similarly removed, such as the use of the word condemn. That word has been used multiple times today by the Lord Mayor and should be included. We as a council should condemn domestic and family violence in our community. Also, the title of the document itself, it's now called the Domestic and Family Violence Strategy. The word prevention has been removed from the title of the document, and that should be reinstated. It is the reason we are all supportive of this strategy today to prevent domestic and family violence in our communities. Mr Chair, my view is that the 1 woman a week statistic is critically important for the public to be aware of, as it points not only to the gravity of the issue we are dealing with, but also to the gendered nature of domestic violence. Similarly, by council publicly stating that it condemns violent behaviours sends a clear message about council's position and zero tolerance approach. The purpose of creating this strategy was to see the prevention of violence in our city, and that word should never have been removed from the title. The online source Counting Dead Women has reported this week that 21 women have been killed by a violent act in the 21 weeks since the start of this year. In February, we are all aware, and Councillor Cunningham has detailed, the brutal murder that particularly shocked the nation and our local community of Hannah Clark and her 3 beautiful children by her estranged husband, Rowan Baxter, in Camp Hill. We cannot be silent on this fact, nor should we. We have heard lots of words from politicians on issues of domestic violence in recent years, and particularly after those murders that are very public in nature. The reality is, today, Mr Chair, there have been hundreds of police call-outs for domestic violence-related matters across this country. In the wake of Hannah and her children's deaths, we saw the Senate vote to establish a new inquiry into domestic violence with particular regard to violence against women and their children. The report was due by August 13, 2020. That report, back 3 months early, with no submissions and no public hearings. No doubt, there will be another inquiry to remedy the failures of the first after public outcry. But I don't raise this to point the finger at other levels of government. I raise this to highlight the fact that governments can produce documents and can speak words that, unless supported by critical funding and practical support, do not make a difference to those experiencing violence every day in this city. As a council, the largest city council in this country with a $3.1 billion budget, we are uniquely placed to not only raise awareness of domestic and family violence in our city, but to deliver tangible services and support. The strategy defines council's key role as one of education, that we do not play a critical role in the community prevention and responding to violence. I think this is a flawed premise. Brisbane City Council plays a significant role in creating safe public environments, developing community facilities, working in partnership with housing providers to provide affordable accommodation and providing health and community services. We also have the ability to demonstrate leadership in resourcing and coordinating strategies with our partners across a spectrum of services and settings, including the state and federal government, and a commitment should be made to engaging with and fostering those relationships with the relevant departments at other levels of government so that we can take a proactive approach to extending our reach and impact in stopping violence in this city. One way to do this would be to establish and resource a Brisbane City Council Domestic Violence Prevention Strategy Committee to assist with the ongoing monitoring, development and implementation of this strategy, which would also include consultation with key interest groups, as well as state and federal government representatives. Another meaningful response would be to seek to partner with and support the Queensland Government Domestic and Family Violence Prevention Council, where strategies overlap with council jurisdiction. Overall, the document should be amended to reflect specific timeframes and actions. There is very little description of actual actions to be undertaken by council and the timeframe of the document and specific action items, as well as when the document itself will be reviewed. Although the strategy acknowledges domestic violence leave for council employees, there should be an audit of existing policies with a view to developing a suite of workplace policies and procedures to ensure that staff experiencing violence are supported, the organisation strengthens its understanding of the importance of gender equity in relation to preventing violence against women, and that staff are trained and encouraged to take bystander action. I was pleased to see the recognition of community leased facilities for domestic violence support services. I think this extends to council playing a proactive role in identifying and establishing safe and welcoming and inclusive spaces and service sites like we have recently seen with Beyond DV. This is a wonderful example where council has been able to accommodate critical support services, the first of its kind in a council leased site to my knowledge. And I recognise also the support of the Lady Mayoress in establishing that service. Another key component that was removed from the final strategy was a commitment that safety and security would be a key consideration in all council planning decisions. This should not have been removed. We know that council's role in city planning is a critical juncture where council can have a real practical impact for those impacted by violence. This action would also open the door for undertaking a safety audit of all public spaces and places and help to place a lens of safety over all city planning activities. This also goes hand in hand with dealing with the issue of homelessness, which we know domestic violence is a leading cause, particularly for women in our city. Again, the development of a homelessness strategy could be a critical step to ensuring the reach and breadth of this domestic violence prevention strategy and to maximise it. Which brings me to my final point. Although this strategy identifies potential sources of funding for domestic violence related initiatives, it does not create or commit additional funds for this purpose. This is critical if we are to respond in a meaningful way. As the largest council in Australia with a $3.1 billion budget, I think we have an obligation to do better in this space, and I think we can do better. This strategy is a start and a step in the right direction. I hope that this is the start of a conversation and not the end. When it comes to stopping domestic and family violence in our community, we all have a role to play, and Brisbane City Council's role cannot be understated. That role is only limited by the people in this room. I know that the commitment is here and that every councillor in this place is committed to doing their best for this city. So let's ensure that this is the start of the conversation, and that way As the Red Rose Foundation would say, we can all change the ending together.